Voters are angry. That's the consistent message that Liban Mohamed says he's hearing as he knocks doors across Utah's new 1st Congressional District. Mohammed, a 27-year-old Democratic socialist and son of Somali immigrants, pulled off one of the bigger upsets of this election cycle when he won the vote at the Democratic State Convention outright, besting former Congressman Ben McAdams on the final ballot. Now he's trying to translate that grassroots energy into a district wide win in the June 23rd primary. I sat down with Mohammed to talk about health care, the controversial Box Elder County data center project, the anti-immigrant rhetoric that's targeting his campaign, and why he says whoever wins the Democratic primary is going to win the election in November. Liban, it's great to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I'm really excited, Brian. You have an amazing show, so this is going to be awesome. I already know.
Well, we shall see. So hold your judgment until the end. But um, let's the question that I like to ask everyone who's running for office. It's pretty simple. Why you? Why now?
Listen, with this new district flipping from plus 20 percentage points Republican to plus 24 percentage points Democrat, and in that one of the most progressive open seats in the entire nation, what this moment presents is the first time that Utah has the opportunity to elect a progressive that's focused on working class issues, a leader who feels like they represent, voters feel like it represents the hope that they're looking for, and not just the certainty of the typical status quo. And the Democratic Convention showed that a lot of the delegates from all the different neighborhoods thought that I was that person. And I hope to live up to this moment and deliver a win on June 23rd and deliver on the working class issues.
You mentioned that this is one of the most progressive seats in the country. What are you basing that on?
Yeah. So when you look at the results, it's really difficult to assess kind of the ideology of the Democratic base in Utah because of the limited amount of primary votes that we can use as an example. But if we take the last two presidential primaries, so 2016 and as well as 2020, what you'll see is an overwhelming support for leaders that are of more of that left side of ideology. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. We're talking about a state that's Democratic Party voted 79% in favor of Bernie versus Hillary Clinton, who is obviously the face of the establishment in 2016. And then in 2020, Bernie was able to achieve actually not only the most votes, more than then Vice President Joe Biden running for president, more than Klobuchar, more than Bloomberg, all combined. So we're looking at a district that has an ideology that's different than a lot of what we see in Washington, D.C., people who are open to something different, people who are focused on something that's more akin to the progressive movement that we see on a national scale.
You use the word progressive, and three of the candidates who are in this Democratic primary are self-described progressives. How do you define that term, and how are you communicating that term to voters?
This is a good question. Quite frankly, I don't like the terminology of progressive. I don't like the terminology of democratic socialist, all these labels, because it takes people away from the focus, which is the issues. To me, what I think I represent, what I am fighting for is simple things. When it comes to affordability, our day-to-day lives, healthcare is a human right at a cheaper price. Fighting to make sure that every parent can afford childcare. They shouldn't have to choose between their paycheck and the well-being of their child. Fighting for access to housing, substantive policies that actually propose solutions to solving the key fundamental issues that we're having today, and not just rhetorically at a high level, but specific policy agendas. And that's me, what it means to be a progressive, to progress our society in a way that we haven't been able to before, with bold mechanisms.
Now, you are a self-described democratic socialist, and if you're a political junkie, a nerd like me, you know what that means.
Yeah.
But I would say that the vast majority of people, voters, aren't as tuned into politics as you and I might be. I hope that a lot of the audience for the show is, but there are those who are not. How and it's very easy to paint the term democratic socialist as a pejorative. How do you get around that? How are you messaging that? Because I find that an interesting conundrum, because one of the old adages is if you're in politics, if you're explaining, you're losing. So how do you get past people who might hear the word democratic socialist and and immediately think about all the negative connotations?
I actually disagree with the premise of that. So there's
Okay.
a poll done, I think it was by Hinckley, but it was published in the Deseret News. You could check and figure out the exact source, but it was really interesting. And it showed that Utah's Democratic base, well over 70%, view democratic socialism as highly favorable. And I don't think that I'm in a position where I have to focus on explaining what this idea of democratic socialism is and what that means to me. Rather, what I have to focus on is the issue at hand and the solution that I'm proposing. And that is the exact message that resonates. So let's take healthcare, for example, something that I'm deeply passionate about and want to tackle as one of my top priority areas. We, the United States of America, spend more money on healthcare than any nation on earth. When you look at some of our peer nations, some of them we pay twice as much per pupil. Yet we are the only wealthy nation that does not guarantee healthcare coverage. And if we could propose a solution akin to some of our peer nations that would be able to provide full coverage for everyone with the kicker, here's the kicker, while simultaneously lowering overall costs, to me, that is a no-brainer. And the way that is done is by making sure that the public, the people in a single payer system own our insurance, that our taxpayer dollars go towards serving us and our people, not towards the profiteers in the private sector insurance industry who are not providing the net value that we want to see. The value that we want to see is from our doctors, our hospital systems. But what is the insurance industry doing besides cutting a check? We, the public, can cut that check. And we, the public, by doing so, can make sure that the 27 million adults that are not insured have coverage. The 4 million children that are uninsured have coverage. The 300,000 Utahns that are uninsured have coverage. And we could do it while saving money. So to me, that's what I'm focused on. So call it whatever you'd like to call it. What I'm focused on is changing people's lives and saving our pockets.
Let me ask this. One of the things that's really been in the news, and I'm sure that you're getting a lot of talk about it on the campaign trail, is the massive hyperscale data center in Box Elder County. If you are in Congress, there you will have an opportunity to have a hand in regulating these. Tell me what you're hearing out on the campaign trail about this, and what are your thoughts on this really rapid push to build what is likely going to be one of the largest data centers in the world if and when it does get finished?
People are upset. And that's across the political spectrum, the community, the people who live in that area, people across the state of Utah do not want this to happen. We all understand that data centers don't belong in deserts. And I'm actually the only candidate who had a policy explicitly on data centers from the day I entered this race. Right there, that first uploading on my website, it was right there. And a lot of people across the nation, the progressive movement, they're calling for a data center moratorium. But the reality is, in Utah, we don't need a pause, we need a prohibition. In a state that has a great salt lake that's drying up, and it's drying up, puts up toxic dust, lead, mercury, arsenic all into the air, causing an imminent public health crisis. The last thing we need is a major project that is consuming water in numbers that we can't even imagine, put our minds around. That's the last thing that we need. At that, the last thing that we need is a project that, of course, is not using clean energy because billionaires don't do that, but is going to be entirely powered by natural gas plants. to power 9 gigawatts of power. That's to almost 3x the amount of power that we have, that we use in the entire state of Utah combined right now. And I actually saw some articles saying that they even are shooting their moonshot as 12. They're going to 4x what our entire energy consumption is right now. And the 9 number, that would cause what, according to a professor, an expert in this area from the University of Utah, Kevin Perry, carbon emissions to increase by 50%. So this is my policy proposal. I have a very clear one. It's been consistent the entire time. We don't need a pause. We need a prohibition on hyperscale data center development in all water-stressed areas, and Utah, of which obviously is beyond water-stressed. Next, we need renewable energy requirements. 100% renewable energy for any data center that is developed across the state. The nation needs to have 100% renewable energy requirements. The next thing, water neutral requirements. And lastly, we need cost causation rules. If we have to build a new substation, if we have to build new transmission lines, they caused it, they pay for it. We should not be subsidizing profiteering. If we're socializing costs while private sector interest gets to privatize gains, that's exploitation. And what I want to focus on when I get elected to Congress, as the only person with big tech experience, is coming up with substantive, tangible, specific solutions like I just articulated now to hold them accountable. It's time for a new generation of leadership that understands the new generation of issues that we're facing. It has the expertise, ability, relationships, and most importantly, integrity to pull it off. And that I believe I am. So I'm really excited to make that a core focus of my campaign and service.
Let me follow up on one thing that you just said because I was struck by it. You said people are angry. That's the sense that I get too. And when voters are angry and they're in the mood to, for want of a better term, throw the bums out, that's when elections tend to get wacky. Characterize the kind of anger that you are experiencing from voters as you are out on the campaign trail, because I think that is going to be a defining characteristic of this upcoming 2026 midterm election. I'm just curious about, aside from the data center, what else are they angry about? Because that's my sense too, that they're angry, but it's really hard to. And I'm not asking you to categorize what they're angry about, but there is this current of anger from voters, and that's when you get interesting things happening in elections, because when voters are in the mood to throw the bums out, that's when you get wave elections, that's when you get change elections. And so I'm curious what kind of anger you're meeting when you're out talking with voters.
There's a fundamental concern that I think goes across many issues. It's that voters feel that our government, the establishment, the elites are prioritizing profiteering, are prioritizing matters abroad, are prioritizing things that are not the things that we need them to be. This ethos that I have focused all across my campaign is American diplomacy abroad and our own dignity at home. And I came up with that line because I feel like that's exactly what I'm learning from folks. Whether it's the data centers and feeling like our environment is being exploited, our taxpayers are being exploited, because why are we subsidizing a $30 billion project that, if it's such a great business, you don't need to be subsidized? Why are we subsidizing something that's going to consume our water when we're in a drought? Why are we subsidizing something that's going to increase our carbon emissions by 50%? Right? Why are we funding endless wars abroad? Why are we funding ICE to come and essentially terrorize our community? Up in the Northwest, where we have a prison, we're about to have an ICE facility. You know what we don't have in the Northwest of the Salt Lake Valley? We don't have a high school. We don't have a hospital. It is time for us to start focusing on the ordinary people's issues and serving Americans, serving our neighbors, and treating our people with dignity. And people are frustrated because that fundamentally is something that they don't see happening, and they're protesting. They went all the way out to Tremont to protest. I saw people from St. George, from Cedar City. I saw people from other states even in protest of exploitation. So I think that's the fundamental frustration that's happening right now. A lack of investment in us and an overinvestment in the elites and war and things that aren't serving us in our day-to-day lives.
You are a Gen Z candidate. You're 27 years old. And I'm curious how that is shaping this race for you, shaping how you're approaching this race. Because if you look at the voter registration numbers, about 22% of this new first congressional district, they're Gen Z voters. Among Democrats, that's about 24%. How are you approaching this race as a member of that cohort? How's that shaping your approach to this race? And also, how are you bridging what could be a generational gap with older voters who, who are not in that Gen Z group?
Yeah, absolutely. So fundamentally, I think the big thing that's special about Gen Z is our ability to communicate and find ways to resonate in mediums and means that are accessible to many. So I'm really focusing in on the strengths that I have from that aspect. And most importantly, engaging Gen Z to be the voices that engage the generations that are older than us. We've been building a really awesome grassroots movement. So diving into the bases that really resonate with us within the young base has been a really special way to be able to get people who are willing to knock doors, people who are willing to share content, and people who are willing to spread the message in a way that resonates. I don't try to focus my policy specifically on Gen Z, other than the things that we are all facing, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's childcare, whether it's fighting for, student debt relief. A lot of the issues that I'm focusing on span across generations. And my key engagement with the Gen Z community is using them as a vehicle to spread that. And it's been quite successful thus far.
I think that that's a fair answer. But as a follow up, do you find that some older voters dismiss you because of your age? Are you finding that at all on the campaign trail? Or are they receptive and willing to listen to what you have to say?
Face value, people may have their doubts. But when they hear me speak, when they hear my policies, when they get to learn about the experiences that I had and the results I was able to produce, they become quite open to this campaign. Quite frankly, as I said before, the one thing that I learned in Democratic Convention, the one thing that I've learned of many things throughout this journey, engaging folks, is people are fed up with the status quo. They are fed up with the status quo and they want something different. And yes, they see me as a young person who may not have the tenure of experience as the others, but what they also see me as is a person that has produced more results than any of the other progressive candidates legislatively. Even though I wasn't a elected official, even though I'm 27 years old, I was able to get CPR requirements passed for every single high schooler and funding in perpetuity to address the number one cause of death in our state, in our nation, in the world, cardiovascular disease. I was able to get CPR training requirements for our emergency dispatchers. I was able to work with Democrats and Republicans to get postpartum Medicaid coverage extended from 60 days to a year. So I ask people not to judge me by my age, but by the results that I was able to produce and the content of my character. And my job is to be out there doing as many conversations as I possibly can with voters, folks like yourself, and give them the opportunity to learn a little bit more about myself. And I think across generations, we'll have that ability to appeal.
Speaking about your experiences on the campaign trail, ever since you've jumped into this race, you've been the target of some pretty ugly anti-immigrant rhetorics, Islamophobic rhetoric. How much of a toll has that taken on you? I mean, I can't even imagine, sitting from my perch as, an older white man. I can't imagine what it's like to walk in your shoes, putting yourself out there as a candidate when you know that just this really ugly hatred is coming your way, especially in today's online world where any coward can hide behind a fake screen name and say the worst things possible. And I know that people say that they want to just let that roll off their back, but that's got to be taking a toll on you somehow. So I'm curious how that shaped your approach to this race or what that experience has been.
The rhetoric out there that I'm facing is a reflection of a sentiment that honestly is primarily being driven by the President of the United States of America, the person who's supposed to be the leader, the commander in chief, the leader of freedom. That person is a person who is proactively, consciously trying to instill fear into our immigrant communities, into our Somali American community specifically, just because he can't stand the opposition of our strong leaders like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who has endorsed us, for example, right? And when he's trying his best to instill fear in us, he and all those others, they want to see if we're going to fall back or if we're going to stand tall. And I also want to tell you something that's true, in my opinion. A lot of the rhetoric that we're facing, I mean, when I announced this campaign, Bryan, I had brand new social media accounts just for the campaign. I was so excited. I made a really awesome video. It was like one of the most inspiring moments of my life. I felt like I can do something for my community. I can get new people involved in that process. I'm so excited. Brand new account, 0 followers. I post that announcement. It gets 2.3 million views on X. It also gets over 40,000 anti-immigrant, Islamophobic, racist posts. People are frankly shocked, Bryan. Some of them are maybe even scared that a 27-year-old son of Somali immigrants who's Muslim in the state of Utah, of all places, has this audacity to think that he can run for Congress and believes that he belongs in the halls of the United States Congress, has what it takes. But the truth is, a lot of that rhetoric is not people from Utah. A lot of it is bots. A lot of it is people outside of this state, across our nation, DC political operatives who think that it's politically advantageous to be bigoted, who think that it's in their strategic benefit to spread hate. But in that, there's also real hate. But in that hate is often beneath that, some pain sometimes. Beneath that pain is legitimate grievances. Our neighbors, they feel shut out. They feel taken advantage of. They feel left behind. I would say even sometimes they feel abandoned. But it's not our immigrant communities that are at fault. It's not the Somali American community. It's not the Latino community that we have here. It's not the LGBTQIA community. What it is a system that prioritizes corporations, greed, the war machine over just like us, the ordinary people. And so what I'm going to be focused on is not reacting to that hate, but instead looking at it in a positive way and finding the beauty behind the madness and using it as a platform to talk about the fundamental issues that all of our neighbors are facing, which is affording the roof over their head, being able to take care of their child, being able to afford healthcare. And if we, the people that they hate so much, are the ones who are fighting for them the hardest, serving them the most, loving them the most, that is how we combat this. So yes, it's hurtful, obviously, and all those things, but I can't focus on that. This is what I got myself into. And I got myself into this in part because I knew this hatred is out there. And I wanted to try my best. And we'll see if I can accomplish it throughout this journey to be the example that a lot of these people who have these beliefs of communities that I come from can see as actually a positive and what we're a reflection of what we really are. So
I appreciate that answer, and I'm sorry that I had to ask it because there's some real ugliness out there, and a lot of people like to chalk that up to our political moment we're in. But some of the stuff I've seen specifically about you is just really makes me question, what's happening in this country that was supposed to be a melting pot. I don't want to dwell on that anymore, but we'll start that again. I don't want to dwell on that any longer. I want to focus a little bit as we wrap up here about this race, about this primary election. You're one of four candidates. You did pull an upset at the Democratic State Convention. You won 51% of the vote, won the vote outright, lasting all the way until the final round when you defeated former Congressman Ben McAdams. How are you translating that win at convention, the 51% of convention, to a more district-wide win, to a contest that's district wide, in which you've got one of the candidates who has more name ID and is better funded than everyone else? It's clearly an uphill battle for you. So I'm wondering how you're approaching that, and how you plan to translate that.
I disagree with the premise that it's clearly an uphill battle for us because we're
Okay.
about to launch what I would believe is going to be one of the most robust grassroots movements that the state of Utah has ever seen. The amount of people who are signing up to volunteer that we're soon about to deploy, I think is going to be a really beautiful experience. What we saw in the Democratic Convention is a slate of delegates representing each and every neighborhood across this entire district. People from different backgrounds. I believe the number was, don't quote me on this, but it might have been like 90%. Some dramatic number of the delegates were new delegates this year. People who are not the establishment, a true representation of what this district is, and the people who are most informed and excited for the opportunity for something different. And they chose us because they had the privilege of knowing us. And what my job is now is to organize this movement so that each and every voter gets that same experience that the delegates had at convention, which is the privilege to know us. And if they know us, they support us. If they know us, they organize. If they organize us, then they share the word. And so I'm highly confident in our ability to prevail despite what the slate of the candidates look like, simply because of our ability to resonate. And most importantly, nothing to do with me, but all of the people who are coming out to hit the doors, to phone bank, to text bank, to share a word with their friends and family. I think it's going to be a really fun journey. And I wish you were at convention. Like, it was a really beautiful experience. And we just got to replicate that same experience that those folks had to everybody in the district.
Yeah, I decided to spend the day down with the Republicans, so
It was the wrong
that's where I
time.
was on that day. I know some
Okay.
people can say that it was the wrong choice or not. Anyway, does it change your calculation on this primary at all, given that the Democrats have an open primary? It's not just the Democrats who are going to be voting on this. Independents can request a ballot. Registered Republicans can request a ballot. So, it's going to be difficult to really predict what the electorate is going to look like because you don't know who is requesting a ballot. Does that change your calculations on this at all?
What the electorate looks like is less of a factor because there's one thing that we do know is what the electorate is facing. If they're facing raising premium costs, they have a place in this campaign. If they feel like their childcare bills are too high, if they feel like they can't afford to take care of their child because they don't have paid parental leave when they're a new mother, a new father, they have a place in this campaign. If they feel like housing is too expensive in Utah and there's a crisis going on, they have a place in this campaign. If they feel like they need a leadership that is focused on the everyday issues, focused on American diplomacy abroad, and most importantly, our own dignity right here at home, they have a place in this campaign. So whether they're a Republican, whether they're independent, whether they are a Democrat or how far left they are, it does not matter. What matters is that we carry ourselves in a way that resonates, that we're positive, that we organize, that we knock every single door in this entire district and let people know that we are here for nothing else besides to do our best and serve them and learn from them. And I think that message at the end of the day is what resonated in convention. And with the right organizing efforts, it'll resonate with the district at large. And funding wise, we're starting to do really well. Our grassroots fundraising has been going actually exceptional recently. We just hosted one with Congressman Ilhan Omar. We're about to get a lot more national endorsements and support. We're building something really special here. So I'm excited for what's to come. And I think we're going to shock people once again.
Okay, now let's project forward. hypothetically you win the primary in June. This district, it's not a Democratic majority district. If you look at the numbers, and I just pulled the most recent voter registration numbers that I have access to, it's about 35% independents, 33% Republicans, and then about a quarter Democrats. So how do you approach, or do you need to do something, or what would you need to do to broaden your appeal? Because you're going to have to put together a coalition that's not just Democratic voters. You're going to need independents and even some Republicans in order to win in November. So what would your calculation for that be?
The registration numbers, first and foremost, is not a reflection of how people vote. The best way to understand the district makeup is how they vote. And so if they voted just in 2024, plus 23, almost plus 24 percentage points in favor of Kamala Harris, and this district, if you map it out, has traditionally voted Democrat, then I would say that it is indeed a Democratic district, and that the independent voters within it are leaning towards that side. So just because somebody's registered as an independent doesn't necessarily mean that they're more of a moderate or conservative. It means that they don't feel like the two-party system represents their values. And I myself resonate with that. So anybody who feels like they want a leader that's simply focused on the issues and not focused on appealing to a specific base, that's what this is about. I'm not seeking to only serve progressives, democratic socialists, or Democrats at large. I'm seeking to serve everybody. And the campaign platform I am running on is something that majority of us are struggling with every day. So that's what I'm focused on. And as long as I'm focused on the issues and the solutions that we're going to provide, not only talking about the problems, but the plan, I think voters will resonate. And so, yeah, if we win the Democratic primary, I would bet anything I could if I was a betting man, but fortunately I'm not. But yeah, we will. Whoever wins this Democratic Party primary will certainly win the general election.
Well, Liban Mohamed, I've really enjoyed this. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed spending this time with you. Where are your where are your socials, and where can people find you on online?
Yeah, so my website is libanforcongress.com. That's LIBANFORCONGRESS.com. You can volunteer there, sign up, and learn about all the different opportunities to engage. You can donate. And most importantly, you can learn about our platform, what we're standing for. We have a really beautiful website, I had to say. So shout out to our designers. Alex, I'm going to give you a credit here. And then also on socials, on TikTok, you can find me at Liban Mohamed, simple. On X and on Instagram, you can find me and other places as well. Liban for Congress. Liban for Congress, but the 4 is the number 4 in this instance. So please reach out. I'm here to listen, to learn, and build the people's movement alongside you all. And I'm really excited. Thank you for this awesome interview and opportunity, Ryan. This was fun.